You may see this cover sheet on some of your signings. If you need help, please pick up the phone and call your signing service, and we will call Escrow. This has been an issue with a county lately where the signature covers text, and with e-recording becoming more popular, the county is stating that when they see these scanned documents, they cannot see the original printed text. What escrow officers have to do is reprint the signature line to make sure that it is visible for the county. I always say for recorded documents, have them sign above the line, just like this. A statement made by you, the owner. And so here, I'm going to have you fill in the state and county that we're currently signing in. Notice how after I give a general description of the document, I go right into guiding them through the form. If I just tell them the description of the document and have them fill it out, they will get flustered. They will get confused, and they're not inclined to completing it. So you really want to walk them through. This is a sworn statement made by you, the owner. Go ahead and fill out state and county. Over here, we want to have you fill out the type of property. Okay, single family, great. Number 2, there's actual pedestrian and vehicular access to and from the property. So there's actual sidewalks, driveway to and from the property. Is that true? Okay, so this would be except for none, no exception. So it's saying there's actual driveways and sidewalks to and from the property except for none. So it's stating that this sentence is true. There is sidewalks and driveway to access the property. Number 3, there are no repairs, work of improvement, or materials that's been unpaid in the last 90 days, except for none. This is to make sure that the signer does not have any mechanics liens. That's what it's asking for here. If there's no unpaid work in the last 90 days, go ahead and write none. Number 4, there are no unpaid bills for labor or material to do construction, except for none, right? So there's no unpaid bills except for none, if that is true. 5, no one has possession or can access the property, only the undersigned. So the person who's signing this document has access to the property. Are there any tenants on the property? Because they do have access to the property, right? If the signer has tenants, then they would mark the applicable boxes. At minimum, the undersigned is checked because the undersigned is the seller, the owner. Number 6, no person other than the above has any rights to the property to use or travel on the property, except for, so aside from the person who signed the document, any tenants, anyone else have rights to the property to access it? No? Okay, great. Number 7, or none actually. Number 7, to our knowledge, there's no existing violations with the city or county except for none, right? If that's the truth. 9, the subject property is habitable and has not been damaged or destroyed by natural or man-made causes. If that's true, initial. So that means that you agree or confirm. Okay, so you'd have both, all your signers initial. Whoever signed this document initial. If there's a third, 3 or more signers, just draw little initial lines for them. Number 10, the undersigned has not received supplemental tax bills except for none, if that is the truth. If they're not sure how to fill it out, or you're not sure how to walk them through, call your escrow officer or call your signing service. The certification of trust, another form that tends to get left blank. Very easy to have the signer fill out. So the name of the trust, which is likely in the signature line on previous pages, like on the settlement statement, the first page of the prelim will have the name of the trust. And then the date of the trust is normally in the name of the trust. If it's not, then the signers have to figure out that information. Truster / settler of the trust. So who created the trust? And then original trustees, it's usually the same as a truster / settler. So who's the original creators of the trust? Successor trustee. If you were to pass during this transaction, who would take over and sign documents, get the transaction done? Who would be your successor trustees to carry out your wishes in your trust? The taxpayer ID number. Does your trust use your social? Are you going to report the sale under the trust tax ID number? Does a trust have a separate tax ID number? And then number 2, declarant certifies that the now acting trustees are, so they fill in your signer, who's a trustee, would fill in their name here. And then declarant states that the trust is in full force and who has the power to end the trust. So likely it would be their name or whoever has the power to end the trust. A lot of times it's the original person who started the trust or the current acting trustee. Who has the power to end the trust? Number 5, is the trust revocable? You can still make changes to the trust, or irrevocable? You cannot make changes to the trust. Number 6, as trustee, you have the power to, I'm assuming, sell the property, which is what you're doing right now. Yes? Okay. Line B, as trustee, you have the power to borrow money or get a loan under your trust. Okay, yes, great. Number 7, title to the trust assets. So how are the assets like this property titled? So you can get this information from the first page of the prelim, which shows how the property is titled, which is under the trust, or you can go to even the first page of the settlement statement. It's there. The signer just has to make sure that that information is correct, but that is where the answer is located. Date and sign. And then here, this is to certify that you're not a non-foreign person, so you're not a foreigner. So here, you're going to start with number 4, which is in this example, the trust tax ID number, which is either the social or it's a separate trust tax ID number. Signers should know this. Number 5, what is your current home address? Date and sign. 1099-S, the proceeds from this transaction will be reported to the IRS. Here, let's start off with the name. How are you going to report the sale on your tax returns? Is it going to be your name, your trust? They have to fill it in. And then does the trust, because based on the signature line, they're selling as trustees of their trust, are you going to be using your social or what is your ownership percentage? And then here, normally these don't apply, but go ahead and have them read through each. 1A, it says that if the seller's percentage is under 100%, then they need to fill this out. Okay. 2 and 3 normally doesn't get filled out, but they still should read it. And then date and sign. 593. This one also gets left blank a lot. So have them start with part 2 always. Part 1 is filled in with escrow officer's information already. So they're going to fill in their name and their social, if they're selling as an individual or if they're living trust and themselves are one and the same. If the trust has a separate tax ID number, like an EIN, they're going to fill out their name and the EIN over here. And then over here, we need their mailing address. City, state, zip goes in separate boxes. A best phone number here of the person who's the most responsive. This is typically filled in, but if it's not, we need the subject property. The ownership percentage of the person who's filling out this document. Okay, what is your ownership percentage? If the signer has lived in the subject property for at least 2 out of the last 5 years, they may qualify for this first exemption, all one section, 1 through 12. Even though it's separated, it's one section, 1 through 12. And no, these are not already pre-marked. These are just bullet points. So they're bulleted. It's not marking yes. If you see 1031 exchange documents, you can let them know that if you're doing a 1031 exchange, which I assume you are based on seeing 1031 exchange documents, this box may apply to you, number 10. Page 2 is only filled out if box 3 and part 3 was filled out. Seller has a loss or zero gain. If the signer checked a box in part 3, so 1 through 9, if they checked a box between 1 through 9, they're going to check that first perjury statement box and then go ahead and have them sign and date right here. Here we have a very critical, sensitive document called the Seller Disbursement Instructions. Have all your signers' initial here, and then a phone number so that Escrow can call to confirm the seller disbursement instructions. Doesn't matter if they're getting a wire or mail check, we need initials and a phone number. Next, they have different options as to how the signers can receive their funds. Hold a check for pickup, have a check mailed to them, domestic wires, international, and brokerage wires. We have been getting a lot of issues with this form because signers will write, let me actually show you examples of incorrectly completed forms. So some sellers will write see wire instructions here and attach wire instructions, which is not allowed for WFG because anyone can attach wire instructions. And so it's just not secure. It is required for the signer to fill out all the necessary lines. And the necessary lines are bank name, routing number, account number, and name on account to credit when it comes to funds going to a traditional checking or savings account. This is an example of funds going to checking account. When we see funds are going to an investment brokerage account like Charles Schwab, Fidelity, TD Ameritrade, Edward Jones, we will see incorrectly completed wire forms. For example, I know this is wrong right away because I see the investment brokerage account name in bank name. The way it's supposed to be completed is like this, where bank name would be the intermediary bank, which is the money, the bank where the money has to go through first, like a Chase, a Citibank, for example. Then the routing number, account number, and the name on account to credit will actually be the investment brokerage account name. So for example, Charles Schwab would go down here. And then here is, I call it the final destination where the money lands, which is going to be the account number at Charles Schwab and the investment brokerage account holder name. So let's say it was the name of the family trust. It goes on name on account. I have a handout actually of how it looks. So comment below help if you want that PDF, which has been looked over by an escrow officer from WFG. So another example of an incorrectly completed wire form is when I looked at a scan back, it said John Smith Living Trust, right? So the funds are going to John Smith Living Trust. But then I noticed on the signature line, it said the Smith Family Trust. So although they look very similar, they could be very different trusts. This could be the family, this could be someone's individual trust. And based on the signature line, it says the funds have to go to the Smith Family Trust. So this would not be allowed because this living trust right here is not a vested owner. Like they're not the owner of the property. So we can only send funds to the vested owners. And we have seen wire forms that are just completely left blank. So don't do that. Lastly, we have another affidavit. So this is an affidavit saying that if there's been no unpaid work that would cause a mechanic's lien, this would be 0. And then last question, if the property is habitable and has not been damaged or destroyed, I'll go ahead and have all signers initial right here to confirm that is true. And then when you're ready, date and sign.